The dense jungle of Zalera 3 muffled the sounds of the distant fauna, as the evening shadows began to stretch across the lush undergrowth. Kayla, her scales shimmering slightly under the filtered light of the planet's twin suns, struggled to free herself from the tangled wreckage of her survey pod. Pain shot through her wing as she moved, reminding her of the crash. Emergency protocols initiated. Life support stable. Awaiting rescue signal. Chirped the pod's onboard AI in a calm, disembodied voice. Quiet, Kayla hissed, tapping the console to silence it. She needed to think, to plan her next steps, but the throbbing in her wing and the unfamiliar surroundings clouded her thoughts. As she gathered her survival kit, the crackling of underbrush nearby startled her. Instinctively, she reached for the blaster by her side, her eyes scanning the dense greenery. Whoa, whoa, I'm not here to harm you, a voice called out as a figure stepped into a clearing. It was a human, his hands raised in a peaceful gesture. His light brown hair was matted with sweat, and his clothing bore the signs of long hours in the jungle. I heard the crash. I'm here to help. Kayla eyed him warily, lowering her weapon slightly but not putting it away. Why should I trust you, human? My name's Alex. I'm a botanist. I study plant life for the Terran Colonization Authority, he explained, taking a cautious step closer. I'm alone here. My team is back at base camp, a few kilometers north. Kayla considered her options. Her communicator was broken, and her ship wouldn't miss her until she failed to report back. Alex might be her best chance for survival. Can you walk? Alex asked, noticing her wince as she moved. I can manage, she replied stiffly. Together, they made their way through the thick underbrush. Alex led the way, chopping at the larger fronds with a machete. He talked as they walked, telling her about the research his team was conducting on the planet's flora. We're studying how these plants adapt to their environment, he said, pointing out a flower with luminous blue petals. See this? It's bioluminescent. Lights up at night to attract pollinators. Kayla listened, fascinated despite herself. The biodiversity of Zalera 3 was much richer than her preliminary scans had suggested. As the light faded, Alex helped Kayla set up a makeshift camp using materials he had carried in his backpack. He expertly assembled a small shelter and started a fire with a portable ignition device. You're quite resourceful, Alex, Kayla remarked, watching the flames catch. It's necessary out here, Alex chuckled. You learn to be handy if you want to make it on a frontier world. They sat by the fire, the warmth comforting against the chill that had started to seep through the forest. Alex shared rations from his pack, strange, dried food that tasted surprisingly good. Back at the base, it's all synthesized protein and hydroponics, he explained. I always bring real food when I'm out on long treks. Makes it feel a bit more like home. Kayla shared tales of Thalrix, her homeworld, describing the vast deserts and towering crystal cities. Alex listened intently, his fascination evident. It sounds beautiful, he said. So different from Earth or here. It is, Kayla agreed, but dangerous too in its own way. They talked late into the night, the crackling fire casting flickering shadows over their faces. As Kayla spoke of her people and their explorations, Alex's admiration grew. Despite her initial fears, Kayla found herself appreciating the human's company, his curiosity, and his unexpected kindness. Maybe humans aren't as fragile as we thought, she mused aloud, not realizing she had spoken until Alex laughed softly. And maybe Thalrixians aren't as fearsome as the stories say, he replied, his eyes twinkling in the firelight. Their laughter mingled with the night sounds of the jungle, marking the beginning of an unexpected but profound camaraderie. Chapter 2. The Shelter. As dawn broke over Zalera 3, the light filtered through the dense canopy, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. Kayla and Alex packed up their makeshift camp, preparing for the trek to Alex's base camp. You sure you can make it? Alex asked, glancing at Kayla's wing, which was carefully bandaged but still looked painfully swollen. I'll manage, Kayla replied, her voice firm. Lead the way, human. Alex chuckled at the title. It's Alex, remember? But if you prefer, oh great and mighty human works too. Kayla couldn't help but smile, despite the pain. Just Alex will suffice. The journey was slow, with Alex occasionally stopping to show Kayla various plants and their uses. He picked leaves from a bush and crushed them, handing them to Kayla to smell. This plant has antiseptic properties, he explained. We're testing them for medical use. Here, smell this. The leaves emitted a sharp, clean scent that reminded Kayla of her antiseptic back home. Impressive. Your team does more than just basic research. Yeah, we're trying to see how we can use the planet's resources responsibly. If humans are going to live here, we want to integrate without harming the ecosystem. Their conversation was interrupted by a rustling in the bushes. Alex instinctively reached for the machete at his side, his body tensing. It's okay, a voice called out. A man stepped into their path, dressed in a similar outfit to Alex but with a broader build and darker skin. I thought I might find you out here, Alex. David, you're a sight for sore eyes, man, Alex said with a grin, clapping the newcomer on the shoulder. This is Kayla. She crashed here last night. Pleased to meet you, Kayla, David said, nodding respectfully. Heard about your crash. Glad to see you're all right. Thanks to Alex, Kayla replied, nodding towards her companion. Let's get you both back to camp. You look like you could use a real meal and a medical checkup, David suggested, leading the way. As they walked, David and Alex shared stories of their adventures on Zalera 3, from close calls with the local wildlife to discoveries of new plant species. Kayla listened intently, her earlier apprehension fading amidst their camaraderie. Upon reaching the base camp, Kayla was struck by the complexity of the human operation. Modular habitats were linked together, forming a small, efficient colony. Scientists of various disciplines moved between the modules, their faces lighting up with curiosity at the sight of Kayla. Alex introduced her to several team members, including a microbiologist named Sarah and an ecologist named Raj. Each greeted Kayla warmly, asking about her health and expressing interest in her culture and technology. We have a lot to learn from each other, Raj said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. The technology you described that your ship uses for navigation could help us improve our environmental mapping sensors. Kayla nodded, intrigued by the proposal. I would be happy to share what I know. Cooperation could benefit us all. As the day wore on, Kayla was treated to a hearty meal and a thorough medical check by the base's doctor, Lisa. The hospitality and genuine concern for her well-being touched Kayla deeply, further softening her initial skepticism of humans. That evening, as the sun set, Alex and David sat with Kayla outside her assigned habitat, watching the stars emerge in the twilight sky. You know, we were supposed to be just surveyors and researchers here, Alex mused. But it feels like we're becoming part of something bigger. David nodded. Building bridges, not just between worlds, but between people. It's not something I expected, but I'm glad for it. Kayla looked from one to the other, their faces illuminated by the fading light. Your world and mine are very different, she said thoughtfully, but perhaps in the essential ways not so different after all. Their laughter and conversation continued into the night, forging a bond that felt as ancient as the stars above, born of shared curiosity and a mutual desire to understand, not just to conquer. Chapter 3, The Rescue Plan. The morning at the base camp began with an air of excitement. Kayla, now slightly more familiar with the humans and their customs, joined Alex, David, and a new member of the team, an engineer named Theo, in the main planning module for breakfast. Good morning, Kayla. How did you sleep? Theo asked as he passed her a bowl of what looked like oatmeal. Better than I expected. Thank you, Kayla replied, examining the meal with curiosity before taking a tentative bite. This is good. What is it? It's oatmeal, but we've added some local fruits that are safe for human consumption. Thought you might enjoy the taste, Alex explained, joining in the meal. As they ate, the conversation quickly turned to the matter of contacting Kayla's ship for rescue. We've been brainstorming since last night, David started. Our equipment isn't designed to communicate interstellar distances directly, but we might have a workaround. Theo nodded, pulling up a schematic on the digital display. We can modify our long-range communication array to send a burst signal strong enough to reach your ship's relay orbiting the planet. But we'll need your expertise to adjust the frequency to your specs. Kayla studied the schematic, her mind racing with possibilities. I can provide the necessary frequency and modulation data. Your plan could work, but we'll need to boost the signal significantly. That's where the fun starts, Alex chimed in. We'll need to gather some materials to enhance the array's power capacity. It'll be a bit of a scavenger hunt. David grinned. Sounds like my kind of challenge. Kayla, you up for a little field trip? Absolutely. Kayla agreed, eager to contribute and learn more about the human way of handling challenges. The group set out, armed with a list of needed components and tools. Their first stop was the geothermal fields to the west, where Theo explained they could find conductive minerals that would help amplify the transmission power of the array. As they trekked through the alien landscape, Kayla marveled at the humans' adaptability and their eagerness to embrace new ideas. At the geothermal field, Alex and David collected samples, while Theo explained their properties. These minerals conduct heat and energy more efficiently than anything we've found on Earth. They could double, maybe even triple the array's output, Theo said, handing a particularly shiny specimen to Kayla for inspection. Your resourcefulness is impressive, Kayla noted, examining the mineral. On Thalrix, we have similar resources, but their use is heavily regulated to avoid depletion. We try to be mindful of that here as well, Alex added. Sustainability is key in colonization efforts. Their next stop was a crashed satellite a few kilometers north of the base, where they scavenged for salvageable parts that could be repurposed for their communications project. Here, this should be perfect, David said, extracting a power module from the wreckage. It's still functional. We can integrate this with the array to handle the increased load. With each component they gathered, Kayla's hope for a successful rescue grew. She found herself increasingly impressed by the humans' ingenuity and their willingness to help a stranger from another world. As the sun began to set, they returned to the base camp, laden with materials and bursting with ideas. The team spent the evening in the tech lab, surrounded by tools and parts, working together to modify the communication array. Kayla took a moment to step outside, watching the stars begin to twinkle in the night sky. Alex joined her, handing her a warm drink. We make a good team, don't we? Alex said, smiling. Kayla nodded, her eyes reflecting the starlight. Yes, we do. Thank you, Alex, for everything. No thanks needed, Alex replied. It's just what we do. Help each other out. Their combined efforts continued into the night, a symphony of collaboration that spanned worlds. And as they worked, the line between human and Thalrixian blurred, bound by shared purpose and newfound friendship. Chapter 4, Close Encounters. The night had settled over the base, bringing a crisp chill that contrasted with the humid heat of the day. Inside the main workshop, the steady hum of equipment filled the air as Alex, Kayla, Theo, and David made the final adjustments to the modified communication array. The gathered materials from their scavenging trip were already integrated into the system, and now the team was running diagnostics to ensure everything would function as intended. All right, power routing looks good, Theo muttered, squinting at his screen. Signal integrity is stable. David leaned over the console, tapping a few keys. Now we just need to set the right frequency. He glanced at Kayla. That's your department. Kayla nodded, stepping forward to enter the exact values required to reach her ship's relay. The touch interface felt foreign under her claws, but she worked quickly, double-checking each input. This should align the signal with the Thalrixian relay, she said. We can attempt transmission at first light. Alex stretched his arms and sighed. I don't know about you guys, but I need some fresh air before I shut down for the night. Anyone up for a walk? David smirked. You just want an excuse to procrastinate. Hey, hard work deserves a break, Alex shot back. Kayla hesitated, then nodded. A walk sounds pleasant. Leaving Theo and David behind to finish logging data, Alex and Kayla stepped outside into the moonlit jungle. The foliage swayed gently in the night breeze, carrying the scent of strange flowers and damp earth. Fireflies, or their alien equivalent, flickered in the distance, casting a mesmerizing glow. "You ever seen anything like this on your world?" Alex asked, gesturing toward the luminous plant life surrounding them. Kayla tilted her head. "Not quite. Thalrix is harsher. Arid lands, crystalline structures. But we have bioluminescent life as well. Mostly in the deep caverns." "I'd love to see that someday," Alex mused. They continued in comfortable silence until a sudden rustling in the underbrush made them stop in their tracks. "Did you hear that?" Kayla whispered, already shifting into a defensive stance. Alex nodded slowly, his hand drifting toward the knife at his belt. The sound came again, a low, guttural growl that sent a chill down his spine. Then it lunged. A creature burst from the shadows, a mass of sleek muscle and bristling spines, its 4 glowing eyes locking onto them with predatory intent. Alex barely had time to react before it swiped at them, its claws raking the air where Kayla had been standing just a second ago. "Move!" Alex shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her away as the beast snarled, turning to pursue. Kayla leaped onto a low-hanging branch, her claws digging into the bark as she assessed the creature's movements. "It's territorial," she called down. "It doesn't want us here." "Yeah, well, I don't want it here either," Alex retorted, dodging another swipe. He drew his knife, knowing it wouldn't do much against something this size, but he wasn't about to go down without a fight. The beast lunged again, but before it could reach him, Kayla dropped from the branch, landing on its back. She wrapped her arms around its thick neck, trying to throw it off balance. The creature thrashed wildly, slamming her against the ground. Alex reacted instantly, charging forward and driving his knife into its flank. It howled in pain, spinning to face him, its glowing eyes filled with rage. "Not so fast," Alex muttered, dodging another attack. Kayla recovered quickly, rolling to her feet. "We need to drive it back," she shouted. "If we show we're not prey, it might retreat." Alex scanned their surroundings. A fallen tree, partially rotted, lay just behind them. An idea formed. "Kayla, get ready to jump," he called. She didn't question him. As the beast charged again, Alex grabbed a thick branch from the fallen tree and swung it with all his strength, striking the creature's head. It stumbled, momentarily disoriented. "Now!" Alex shouted. Kayla sprang into action, using the moment to push off against the creature, launching herself up onto another tree branch. Alex followed, scrambling up as the creature shook itself off. It growled, circling below them, but after a moment, it let out a frustrated snarl and retreated into the jungle. For a long moment, neither of them spoke, catching their breath. Then Alex broke into a shaky laugh. "Okay, that was something." Kayla exhaled, still gripping the tree. "You are reckless, but effective." "Thanks. I think," Alex said, running a hand through his hair. "You all right?" She nodded, though there was a glint of something unreadable in her eyes as she looked at him. "You protected me." Alex shrugged. "Seemed like the right thing to do." Kayla observed him for a moment before softly saying, "You are stronger than I assumed, Alex." He met her gaze. Something about the way she said his name sent a warmth through him that had nothing to do with the humid air. "We should head back," she finally said. "Yeah," Alex agreed, "before something bigger shows up." As they made their way back to the base side by side, there was an unspoken understanding between them. Something had shifted. Neither of them knew exactly what it was, only that it wasn't something they could ignore. Chapter 5, Under the Stars. The day's events left everyone drained, but as night fell over the base, the atmosphere softened. A warm glow spilled out from the main communal building, where Alex, Kayla, and the others gathered after dinner to talk and unwind. Theo was fiddling with a handheld scanner, while David leaned back in a chair, his boots propped on the table. "You sure about those frequency settings?" David asked Kayla, his tone half teasing, half serious. "Yes," Kayla replied, mildly exasperated. I've triple-checked them. If the array fails, it won't be because of my calculations. Theo grinned. I believe her. She's been on point every step of the way. Well, if the engineer says so, Alex cut in, pretending to tip an imaginary hat. I'll just keep my mouth shut. Kayla glanced at him, one brow ridge raised. Is that even possible for you? A burst of laughter filled the room, breaking the tension that had lingered after their close encounter with the native predator. For the first time, Kayla felt a genuine sense of camaraderie with the human team. They might be different in many ways, but their humor, their willingness to share the burden of work, and their openness to her presence. All of it reminded her of the best parts of her own crew back on Thalrix. As the night deepened, one by one the others drifted off to their quarters, until only Alex and Kayla remained. He poured 2 cups of something warm and aromatic, then brought one over to her. What is this? She asked, sniffing it suspiciously. Hot cocoa. It's good. Trust me, Alex said, taking a sip of his own cup. Kayla took a cautious sip and was pleasantly surprised. This is nice. Nice. Alex feigned offense. Only nice? That's my best cocoa recipe. Kayla rolled her eyes. Fine. It's excellent. You've outdone yourself, human. That's better, Alex replied with a grin. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, sipping their drinks and listening to the gentle hum of the jungle beyond the base's perimeter. The glow from the building cast faint shadows across their faces, highlighting the quiet expressions of thoughtfulness and contentment. After a time, Kayla set her cup down. Do you miss your world? Alex considered the question. Sometime. My parents, my sister. But Earth, it's complicated. I think I was always looking for something more. Something that felt... He paused, searching for the right words. New. Unexplored. Out here, I feel like I found that. Kayla nodded slowly. I understand. Thalrix is beautiful, but it can also feel... confining. Our traditions, our roles, they don't leave much room for deviation. Exploration is one of the few ways I can feel truly free. So we're both explorers at heart, Alex said, his smile softening. It would seem so, Kayla agreed. The conversation drifted to lighter topics. Alex told her about the time he accidentally grew an entire batch of bright orange mushrooms in the base's hydroponics lab, much to the confusion of his colleagues. Kayla, in turn, recounted a tale from her training days when she mistook a harmless cave-dwelling creature for a deadly predator, much to the amusement of her crewmates. As their laughter subsided, Alex leaned back and looked up at the sky. You ever just stop and really look at the stars? Kayla followed his gaze. The unfamiliar constellations glittered above, their beauty undiminished by her lack of recognition. I look, yes, but it's different now, knowing we're under them together. There was a quietness in her voice that caught Alex's attention. He turned to her, his expression thoughtful. Yeah, he said softly. It is different. The air between them seemed to shift, growing warmer despite the night's chill. Kayla glanced at him, and he held her gaze. There was no need for words as she leaned slightly closer. Her hand brushed against his, and she felt his fingers turn to gently meet hers. I didn't expect this, Kayla said, her voice almost a whisper. Neither did I, Alex admitted. But I'm glad. Slowly, as though testing an unspoken boundary, their faces drew closer. Their breath mingled, warm against the cool night air. When their lips met, it was gentle, tentative, yet unafraid. Kayla felt the steady rhythm of Alex's heartbeat as he cupped her cheek. His touch light but sure. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a moment of connection, of understanding, of something entirely new and uncharted. As they parted slightly, Kayla saw a flicker of uncertainty in Alex's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a quiet confidence. I guess that's what explorers do, he murmured. Find new frontiers. Kayla smiled, her hand resting lightly against his. Indeed, they stayed like that for a while longer, gazing up at the stars, two explorers who had found something extraordinary in each other. Chapter 6. The Signal Fire. The early morning sun crept over the tree line, casting long shadows across the base camp. Kayla and Alex stood by the makeshift communication array, now fully assembled and ready for its first test. David and Theo hovered nearby, running last-minute checks on the power relays and calibration settings. The air buzzed with a nervous energy. "Are we sure this is going to work?" David asked, frowning at his tablet. "We'll know in a minute," Theo replied. He nodded toward Kayla. "You've got the honor if you're ready." Kayla stepped forward, her fingers poised over the control panel. She glanced at Alex, who gave her an encouraging nod. "No pressure," Alex said with a grin. "It's only the fate of intergalactic communication resting on your shoulders." Kayla rolled her eyes, but a small smile tugged at her lips. "Thank you, Alex. Your reassurance is inspiring." "Anytime," he replied, folding his arms and watching her closely. Kayla input the final sequence and pressed the activation key. A low hum filled the air as the array powered up, its modified components glowing faintly. The signal burst was designed to be short but powerful, just enough to reach the Thalrixian relay orbiting the planet. Theo's eyes stayed glued to his monitor. "I'm reading a clean output. Frequencies holding steady." "Good," Kayla said, her voice calm but her hands tightening on the edge of the console. They waited. The seconds stretched into what felt like hours. Then, a soft beep from the array's display drew everyone's attention. A series of symbols flashed across the screen, Thalrixian characters. "It's working," Kayla murmured, her relief audible. "Translation?" David asked, leaning over her shoulder. "It's a confirmation code from the relay," she explained. "It means the signal reached them, and they're relaying it back to my ship." Alex gave an exaggerated fist pump. "We did it." Theo let out a breath he'd been holding. "Glad to see my wiring didn't fry anything." David clapped him on the shoulder. "Nice work, engineer." Kayla's focus remained on the screen. "Now we wait for my ship to respond. It may take some time for them to receive and decode the message." Alex leaned back against a nearby table, his arms crossed. "So what now?" Kayla looked at him. "We prepare. If they're able to send a rescue vessel, I need to be ready to depart immediately. I'll need to gather my belongings and ensure that all the data I've collected is properly stored." "I can help with that," Alex offered. David chimed in, "Same here. I've got some free time before my next assignment." Theo raised a hand. "You know where to find me if you need a hand with any technical stuff." Kayla inclined her head. "Thank you. I appreciate all of your assistance." The group dispersed to their respective tasks. Alex stayed close to Kayla, helping her pack the few items she had brought from her ship. As they worked, they exchanged small, personal stories, snippets of their lives before this strange, shared adventure. "My family never really understood why I wanted to join the Exploration Corps," Kayla said, carefully folding a piece of lightweight Thalrixian fabric. "They thought I should stay home, follow a more traditional path." "And you didn't want that?" Alex asked, handing her a storage container. "I wanted to see more," she replied. "There's so much beyond our homeworld. I didn't want to spend my life wondering what else was out there." Alex nodded. "I get that. I mean, Earth isn't exactly closed off, but it can feel like it sometimes. Everyone caught up in their routines, in the same familiar patterns. Coming out here, it's like breaking free." She looked at him, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. "You understand." "Yeah, I think I do," Alex said softly. Their hands brushed as he passed her another container. For a moment, neither of them moved, their eyes meeting. "Thank you, Alex," Kayla said after a long pause. "For what?" "For everything. For making me feel welcome, even here, far from home." Alex smiled. "You've done the same for me in a way. So you're welcome." The moment lingered, unspoken words hovering between them. Then, a distant chime broke the quiet. It was the array's notification tone, signaling an incoming transmission. Kayla stood, her posture straightening. "That must be my ship." They walked quickly back to the array, where Theo and David were already reading the incoming data. Kayla scanned the screen, her eyes moving rapidly over the Thalrixian characters. "They've received my message," she confirmed. "They're sending a rescue shuttle. It should arrive within the next cycle." David let out a whistle. "Looks like we'll be seeing you off sooner than we thought." Theo nodded. "Guess I'll have to find another alien tech expert to pick their brain." Kayla smiled faintly, but her gaze shifted to Alex. "Thank you, all of you. I wouldn't have made it without your help." "You're part of the team now," Alex said, his voice steady. "We couldn't just leave you stranded." Kayla held his gaze for a moment before looking away, her expression unreadable. "All right," Theo said, clapping his hands together. "Let's make sure we're ready to receive that shuttle. Everyone knows their jobs." David grinned. "Got it. I'll start clearing the landing zone." The group scattered, leaving Alex and Kayla standing by the array. "So," Alex said, "I guess this means you'll be heading home soon." Kayla nodded. "Yes, but this isn't goodbye." "Not yet." "Not yet," Alex echoed. For now, the only certainty was that their paths had crossed in a way neither of them could have anticipated, and that the time they had left, however brief, would be spent side by side. Chapter 7. Choices and Farewells. Kayla stood at the edge of the clearing, watching the Thalrixian shuttle descend through the thick atmosphere. Its gleaming hull caught the morning light, its smooth shape a stark contrast to the rugged, untamed terrain surrounding it. Alex, David, Theo, and the rest of the base team stood behind her, their faces a mix of curiosity and quiet resignation. The shuttle landed with a gentle hiss, its stabilizers kicking up a faint cloud of dust and debris. Kayla straightened her posture, her scales catching the sun as she smoothed the fabric of her uniform. "Well," David said, breaking the silence, "looks like your ride's here." Theo nodded. "Guess we don't need to call the interstellar taxi service after all." Alex gave him a sidelong glance. "Not the time, Theo." Kayla turned back to them, her golden eyes settling on Alex. "You have all been more generous than I could have imagined. I won't forget what you've done for me." "It's been our pleasure," David said. "Right, Alex?" Alex hesitated, his gaze locking with Kayla's. "Yeah," he said softly. "It's been something special." The shuttle's ramp lowered, and two Thalrixian crew members stepped out, their uniforms crisp and their movements precise. One of them, a tall figure with deep green scales, approached Kayla and saluted in the Thalrixian manner, a graceful motion of the hand across the chest. "Scout Kayla, we're here to bring you back. Are you ready to depart?" the crew member asked, their voice calm and measured. Kayla nodded, then looked back at the humans. "I'll need a moment." The crew member inclined their head, stepping back to give her space. Kayla faced the group. "I don't know if we'll see each other again," she said, her voice steady but tinged with something deeper. "But I want you to know that meeting you has changed my perspective in ways I never expected." David gave a small wave. "If you ever decide to drop by Earth, look us up. I'll buy you a drink." Theo grinned. "Same here. We'll call it a research collaboration." Kayla smiled faintly, then turned her attention to Alex. "And you?" she asked, her voice softer now. "What will you do?" Alex shrugged, his hands shoved in his pockets. "I'll keep exploring, I guess. Keep learning. Maybe visit Thalrix someday, if they'll let me." Kayla's expression grew more serious. "I hope you do. I'd like to show you my world. There's much we could learn from each other." Alex stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "I'll miss you." She held his gaze, her own eyes reflecting the unspoken emotion between them. "And you." For a moment, it seemed as if neither would move, as if the world had paused just for them. But then the Thalrixian crew member spoke again. "Scout Kayla, we need to leave soon." Kayla inclined her head, acknowledging the summons. "I must go." David clapped Alex on the shoulder. "We'll be inside if you need a minute." The rest of the team retreated toward the base, giving them privacy. Kayla stepped closer to Alex, her voice low and steady. "I don't know what the future holds, Alex, but if I have a say, this won't be the last time we meet." He reached out, his hand brushing against hers. I'll hold you to that. Their fingers intertwined for a brief moment, a small but significant gesture. Then, with a faint, almost imperceptible squeeze, Kayla stepped away. She turned, her movements graceful and deliberate, and walked up the shuttle's ramp without looking back. Alex stood there, hands at his sides, watching as the shuttle's ramp closed and the ship began to rise. The whirring of its engines grew louder, and the sleek craft ascended into the sky until it was nothing but a distant glint against the clouds. He exhaled slowly, his shoulders dropping as he turned toward the base. David was waiting for him by the entrance. "You all right, man?" David asked. Alex nodded. "Yeah, just thinking about her." Alex glanced back at the empty clearing, then at David. "About what comes next?" David chuckled softly. "We've still got plenty of work to do here. No time to sit around and mope." "I know," Alex said, managing a small smile. "But I'll keep hoping." Together, they walked back into the base, leaving the clearing behind. Inside, Theo was already buried in another project, and the rest of the team was bustling about, their tasks resuming as though nothing had changed. But Alex felt the shift. Even as he threw himself back into the daily work of exploration and discovery, a part of him remained in that clearing, in that moment when two very different worlds had touched, and perhaps, in some way, merged. Chapter 8: The Reunion. A few months had passed since the shuttle took Kayla away, yet Alex still found himself looking up at the stars each night, wondering if she was out there, thinking of him. The base had grown quieter in her absence. The team's routine continued, the days blending together in a familiar rhythm of data collection and analysis. But for Alex, something vital had shifted. It started as a rumor, quiet whispers that filtered in from the occasional supply run or communication with other outposts. Talk of diplomatic efforts between Earth and the Thalrixian Confederacy. Most dismissed it as nothing more than distant chatter, but Alex's heart leapt at the possibility. The idea that their worlds might be forming a new connection gave him hope that he might see Kayla again. Then one day, David burst into the lab where Alex was analyzing soil samples. "You're not going to believe this," David said, grinning ear to ear. Alex looked up, raising an eyebrow. "What's got you so worked up? Remember those rumors about Earth and the Thalrixians opening a dialogue?" David asked, leaning on the counter. "Well, it's official. The first formal delegation is landing here tomorrow." Alex froze. "Here? At this base?" David nodded. "Yeah. Apparently, our little outpost made quite the impression. They figured it's neutral ground, close enough to the field teams to show off our work but remote enough to keep things quiet. Plus, it's where Kayla was rescued, so it's got some significance." Alex's pulse quickened. "Kayla? Is she coming with them?" "Don't know," David admitted. "But if I were you, I'd make sure I was in the welcoming party." The next day, the base was abuzz with activity. Engineers checked and rechecked the landing pads, while scientists prepared presentations to showcase their findings. Even Theo, who normally rolled his eyes at anything diplomatic, seemed to catch the excitement. Alex, for his part, tried to temper his expectations. There was no guarantee that Kayla would be among the delegation, but the mere thought of seeing her again kept his steps lighter and his mind sharper as he helped with the preparations. As the Thalrixian shuttle descended, Alex stood with the rest of the base team, watching the sleek ship settle gently onto the landing pad. The ramp lowered, and the first delegates emerged, tall, composed figures in flowing garments that shimmered faintly under the sunlight. Their leader, a Thalrixian with intricate patterns across their scales, stepped forward to greet the base commander. Alex's eyes scanned the group, his breath catching when he saw her. Kayla stood toward the back, her posture poised but her gaze searching the crowd. When her eyes met his, her composure softened, and a smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. Before Alex could think, he was walking toward her, weaving through the gathering without care for protocol. Kayla took a step forward as well, and when they finally stood face to face, Alex couldn't keep the grin off his face. "Fancy meeting you here," he said softly. Kayla tilted her head, her eyes glinting with humor. "I could say the same, though I suspect you knew I might come." I hoped, Alex admitted. Not quite the same thing. They fell silent for a moment, the chatter of the delegation and the base personnel fading into the background. Kayla finally broke the silence. It seems our efforts were not in vain. The relay you helped construct made the initial communications possible. And now we're taking the next steps. I'm glad, Alex said, his voice steady. Not just because of what it means for our worlds, but because it brought you back here. Kayla's smile deepened. I've missed this place, and the people in it. Alex hesitated, then asked, How long are you staying? For the duration of the delegation's visit, she replied. Several weeks, perhaps longer. It depends on the progress we make in our talks. That's plenty of time, Alex said, relief washing over him. Time to catch up, too. Kayla placed a hand on his arm, the touch light but grounding. I would like that very much. Over the next several days, Alex and Kayla found themselves falling into an easy rhythm. When the official meetings concluded, they would walk together through the base's gardens, sharing stories of what had transpired since her departure. Kayla spoke of her brief return to Thalrix, of the debates within her people about reaching out to humanity. Alex described the improvements the base team had made, the small discoveries that now felt more meaningful because he could share them with her. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and violet, Alex brought Kayla to his favorite spot overlooking the jungle canopy. They sat side by side on the rocky outcrop, the sounds of the alien wildlife a soothing backdrop. I never thought I'd see you again, Alex admitted, his voice low. When you left, it felt like... He trailed off, searching for the right words. Kayla nodded, understanding what he didn't say. I felt it too, but I always believed our paths would cross again. He glanced at her, a quiet smile on his face. So what now? Now, Kayla said, her eyes on the horizon. We keep moving forward, together if possible. If you're willing, Alex, I'd like to show you Thalrix someday. Show you the crystal cities, the endless deserts, and the caverns that glow like the sky. Alex's smile grew. I'd like that. A lot. They sat in silence for a while longer, watching as the stars began to appear one by one, each one a reminder of the vastness of the universe, and of the connection they'd found within it.